Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest episode of Transfer Insight. My name is Dan Clubb. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by European football expert and familiar name, voice, face to the show now, Kevin Hatchard. Kev, how you doing, mate? Okay.
Yeah, really good. Great to be back.
Good man. Massively appreciated as ever. Right, let's dive straight into it then. No messing about. Unlike Liverpool in the transfer window, had to get that in there early doors. The midfield situation, we now know Martin Zubimendi will not be coming. His loyalty has prevailed. It's proved too strong. So let's pile on the misery to begin with, Kev, if we can. In your opinion on Martin Zubimendi, how brilliant a fit would he, or perhaps would he not, have been for this Liverpool side under Arne Slot?
Yeah, it would have been a great fit, sadly, because he is a top class midfielder. Excellent in that pivot role, moves the ball so well, can get out of tight spaces, can run a game from there. And I think somebody who's really developed so well at Real Sociedad. I mean, remember, he played for Xabi Alonso at Real Sociedad B, and Xabi Alonso is hero. And there are similarities. And Xabi Alonso always talked him up, always said what a good player he was, how impressed he was by his development. But I think the thing you have to bear in mind, really, is that he is La Real through and through. I mean, you do tend to find this with the Basque clubs that do engender that kind of loyalty. You look at Iñaki Williams at Athletic Club. How many times has he been linked with the Premier League move? But that's never happened. Nico Williams at Athletic Club. Yes, Barcelona would love to sign him. There are financial issues there about why they might be not be able to get that deal done. But Nico Williams will be just as happy staying where he is. So, this is not a new thing. Zubimendi, if you look at his career, he's been linked with Bayern, he's been linked with Arsenal, he's been linked with Barcelona. Each and every time he's kind of distanced himself from it and said, look, I grew up playing with my mates. It is my dream to play for La Real. It was interesting, actually. Imanol Alguacil, his coach, was asked once about Zubimendi being linked with Barcelona and whether he could, it was something like, could he deal with the pressure of playing for a big club like Barcelona? And Imanol said, sorry. He already plays for the biggest club in the world. He plays for Real Sociedad. Now, obviously, not many people would think that, but that is the mentality. It's not a stepping stone. It is the dream to play for Real Sociedad. So it's a blow. There's no doubt. I don't quite agree with some people who feel that it's been, a case of wasting time or messing around or whatever. If there is a player of Zubimendi's quality that could really slot into your 11 and there is any chance of getting him, you pursue that option. It's as simple as that. Because why would you not? Why would you walk away from the opportunity of signing a player of that quality? Look, we know what he did for Spain in that final against England. He came on for Rodri, and did anything change for Spain? No, absolutely not. So, look, top quality player. It's a real blow. I'm gutted about it because I would have loved to have seen him at Anfield. He's a player that I've liked for a long time. I said a few months ago I thought Liverpool might go for him actually, but that was when we thought Xabi Alonso was going to be the coach. Look, it's a shame, but I don't agree with the criticism of the club necessarily. I think if you're given any kind of steer that he might be up for it, you pursue it. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's the transfer window. That's football.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I think the indication was that he was open to that move. And I think even at this point now, with the safe in knowledge that it won't be happening, I think there was still a lot of positivity in and around his force towards the Liverpool element of things. It is just that cutting ties with Sociedad that he and many others have found so difficult down the years. We'll move on to some potential alternatives, if you like. Now, it's fair to say at the moment, the line coming out of the club and from all the respected beat journalists, James Pearce is this world, somebody we know well, of course, Liverpool aren't currently probably pursuing actively a plan B, an alternative to Martin Zubimendi. But we know, we've seen in the past that, these things will come out of nowhere with Endo. Like, who anticipated that coming that day last summer? So these things can change. There's openness to Stefan Pacetti potentially leaving on loan. That may change the face of things as well. So I
Yeah.
want to ask you about a few names, Kev, if I can. Some people you'll be very familiar with, of course. The first one, a bit of an unsung hero of the Leverkusen success story from last season. Now, forgive me for the pronunciation of his first name. You will absolutely nail this. I will not. Esquiguil Palacios.
Oh, Ezequiel Palacios.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody at Bayer Leverkusen that has done a really good job. But I think what's interesting is that Robert Andrich kind of developing in the way that he has kind of just edged Palacios to the side a little bit. But he's somebody that has had a serious spinal injury at one stage and had to kind of battle back from that. But yeah, loads of energy, capable of breaking up the play, getting things moving. Somebody who's been a big part of the squad, but obviously has been eclipsed by somebody like Granit Xhaka, who came in and completely ran the show. But that's not what Palacios is in that team for. He's the guy doing the dirty work in there. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting to see what happens with him now. They've made a big signing in that area by Leverkusen in bringing in Alex Garcia. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with him. I can understand why he'd be linked. He's not quite elite level yet, but I think as somebody who, has potential still to grow, has achieved a lot in his career already, and I think can take a few more steps, I think he'd be an interesting option.
Very interesting, yeah. The next one I want to touch upon then, Hoffenheim, 25 years old, Anton Stach. Any potential similarities with Zubimendi and what Liverpool are trying to do, or is he a very different type?
Yeah, Stark is a different type. I mean, he does do that defensive job, and he carries the ball forwards. I feel he's too early in his development, actually. I'm not sure he's the level for Liverpool, to be honest. He's somebody that, made that move. He caught the eye at Mainz when he was there. He was kind of in the fringes of Germany's thinking as well. Not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. But if we're talking about, so this is the crux of the matter, right? Zubimendi is for me getting towards that elite level of holding midfielder. Stark is a long way from that. He might get there. He's a different player to Zubimendi. Maybe not as stylish, maybe not as good a passer. Well, certainly not as good a passer. But I don't feel he's there yet. So that might be one for a couple of years, depending on his development. But I'd be surprised if that's a move they make right now.
Fair enough. Last one for the Bundesliga then. Angelo Stiller, 23 years old, couple of years younger, of course, at Stuttgart. Stuttgart, I mentioned success stories with Bayer Leverkusen. They were one of them as well last year in the Bundesliga. Anything to like about this player?
Now, Stiller, I really like, actually. And he's somebody that is a real organizer in midfield. He's a bit of a pocket rocket, really. But I do like him. I think he's somebody that's really developed. My only concern about him, he's really good. His set plays are nice. He strikes the ball beautifully. Doesn't get many goals. That's probably something that he could do with adding to his game. But he's quite tenacious for a player that's not biggest and not the strongest. He's quite tenacious. My only concern about him would be, if you look at his career, he's blossomed playing under one specific coach, and that's Sebastian Hoeneß. He played for him at Bayern's second team when they won the league together, won the Dritte Liga. He then played together at Hoffenheim, and now they're playing together at Stuttgart. So my only slight concern would be what happens when he's not there. So unless you're going to kind of drag Hoeneß with him, that might be unfair. But I think if you look at his career, he has blossomed when Hoeneß has been around. So it's when he's ready to make that leap. But I do like him as a player. Again, not the level of Zubimendi, nowhere near, but a good player. And I think, for me, much more potential than somebody like Stark.
Very interesting. Yeah, just on him in a bit more detail then. I'm just looking here. He made the move from Hoffenheim to Stuttgart last summer. In the round, the similar sort of time that Liverpool signed with Endo. Was he a replacement? Did he have him lined up to replace Endo? How did that sort of timeline work?
No, not really. What happened was Atakan Karatsor, who'd already been part of that squad, he kind of stepped up to replace Endo in that destroyer role, if you like. So he does all the kind of dirty work. He does all the physical stuff, and Stiller's the ball player. So that's the mix they've got in the Karatsor wins it and Stiller uses it. So that's the idea. And Karatsor's done that job very well, actually. But he's another one. He's very basic. I mean, you know what you're going to get. He keeps the shape. He breaks up play, he tackles, he wins the ball in the air, all that stuff. So yeah, Stiller is a lot more progressive than that.
Very interesting, yeah, and that's I guess what we want. That's why we went for Zubimendi. We want that ball playing, that orchestrated a conductor. So maybe there is
Yeah.
something to like in there. Away from Germany in the Bundesliga, just momentarily, if we can, is there anybody that springs to mind for you? I mean, I've got a few more names: Alan Varela at Porto, Ederson. I mean, even Adrian Rabiot has been linked continuously with a move to Liverpool. Is there anyone out there, anyone you can think of? If it's not going to be Zubimendi, which we now know, of course, is there anybody you immediately drawn to and go, well, it could be him?
Alan Varela, I think, is an interesting option because Liverpool have looked at him for a long time. They were looking at him before he even went to Porto, we're led to believe. So that's a name that does scream out. And he is a guy that, yes, he does the defensive midfield part of it in terms of breaking up the play. He's a good passer of the ball, and he brings the ball forward, and he does have that technical quality that you're looking for. Again, not for me Zubimendi's level, but good and improving and young, and I think has toughened up under Sergio Conceição. So anyone who's played for him, you learn that uber competitiveness. So I think that really helps. I like him as an option. I think the thing to bear in mind as well is that they've got a lot of good players as well already. You know, a lot of good centre mids. And yes, McAllister might not want to play there. He might want to play a bit further forward, but he can do it. Gravenberch, I think, is interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see what Slot does with him. Endo is still there. You know, I like Endo a lot. I know he's had spells where he's maybe struggled a bit, but I think in general he did pretty well. And I think Liverpool fans who would have initially gone, what the hell? Why are we signing him? I think will have been won over a bit, I'd like to think, with his performances. So I don't think there's a need to panic. I think what this is globally, if you like, if you're looking at the whole situation, I think what this is there was an opportunity to improve the 11 by bringing in a player of top quality. They pursued it, didn't happen. I don't think you then need an Artur situation where you desperately bring in a guy who's not going to play. So it's got to be somebody great. It has to be. There's no point otherwise. I understand how it works. I understand fans look at it and go, we need a transfer. Something's got to happen. But I do genuinely think unless it's somebody, and I like Alan Varela, if it's him, fine. I've got no problem with that at all. I think he's somebody that could do really well. But unless it's somebody really good who's going to move the needle, I don't really see much of a point.